So now if we come back into our index.php, when this header closes, we're opening up a content div and we're closing it in the footer. But there's some stuff that I want to add inside the actual page itself. And again, a lot of this is going to be fairly standard stuff that you'll see in some of the default WordPress themes or underscore. So the first thing I want to set up is a new div called primary. And we're going to attach this a class of content area. And this is going to be our primary content as opposed to secondary content, which is what we're going to put in our sidebar, which we'll look at once we have all of our markup in place. So I've got my primary content there, and inside of that, I'm going to add a main tag, so HTML5 main, and calling that main and a class of site main and a role of main. So this is just letting everything know that this is where our main content is going to show up for accessibility reasons, if it's swapped out dynamically or giving updates, etc. So that's perfect. That's all we've got to get there. And inside of that, and some of this will start going in other templates in not too long. Sorry, this should come out. Go inside of there. Inside of here, we want to put an article tag, and this will wrap the actual article itself, or if there's multiple articles inside of the main area, that could be helpful there as well. So I'm going to throw out an article tag here, and I'll remove this. We're going to do something a little bit getting ahead of ourselves here. I'm going to say post dash PHP the ID. And what this is going to do is give every single article, if this is a loop of different posts, a unique ID. So if we needed to throw a permalink to it, if we needed to identify it in our CSS and our JavaScript, etc., that's really helpful. And then just like we have the body class, we also have a PHP post class. And remember the pitfall, don't do class equals to and wrap this in parentheses or in quotation marks. Actually, just use this and it will echo out what you need there. So that's going to be our article. Let's come down inside the article, and following again, just good semantic conventions. We'll break up the header of ours. We'll call this entry header. And some of these classes may look familiar actually if you've been working with any of the default WordPress themes, tweaking them, stuff like that. And inside of here now, we're going to take out index.php, and we're going to say, actually, let's throw a paragraph tag down here. So we could still identify what template we're on, but let's remove the hard-coded that and throw in the title. So now WordPress should be able to figure out, you know what, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We haven't even added the loop yet. Let's hold off on that and just leave that like that. Okay. So we've got the header area set up. That's looking good. And then there's going to be a div for the entry content as well. Some of this may look a little bit redundant. And hey, that's why when you build a custom theme from scratch, you can avoid some of this. You could do whatever you want. You could do whatever you want. But some of these are good conventions and will be helpful later. We'll put the content, we'll put the title in here after we add the loop. But for now, let's just put some dummy content. And finally, come back into our theme, refresh it. Notice not too many changes here, but that extra markup will definitely help us when it comes to the next steps. So now that we have this, we could look at the loop now, but I want to do one more thing, and that's look at sidebars. That's the other possible and probable include. Just like you have the header or the footer, you'll probably have a sidebar and multiple ones, and they don't always have to be in the sidebar. We'll see they could appear in different places and come under different names. So let's take a look at that before we get back into the loop and really get this whole thing dynamically working. But good job so far. At this point, you don't have to go through the process of copying all this over. You could just download the actual markup to see what's happened, or if you want to compare them side by side, add it in. The thing I'll mention in closing here is the most common problem you'll have when adding your own markup into a bit of a framework or into a WordPress theme is missing tags. You forget to close something, you didn't open it correctly, you forgot to put something here because it's in a different file. So just taking the time to really look at the architecture using tabs and indents well will help you with that as well. And that's probably the main pitfall you'll come across. So try this on your own. One thing you may be able to do is go to a simple HTML template site and try making a one-page index.php with a header and a footer out of that HTML. If you're able to do something like that, you're going to find yourself really empowered using WordPress, because any sort of HTML you could design and build along with CSS, you could then port it into WordPress. So take a little time to play around with that at this point, and then in the next lesson, we'll pick up with looking at sidebars.